Hello fellow archers, so in today's video I'm going to show you why you must customize your grip, and this is an absolutely essential thing that pretty much every single archer needs to do. I'm then going to show you what you're looking for in terms of your actual hand positioning in the grip and what can tell you whether you've customized your grip correctly. And I'm also going to show you how you can customize it, how you can use a putty to put it on your grip, how you shape it, how you mold it, and all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to get right into the video. There's a couple of kind of key details that we need to go through here, and there's a few things we need to cover. Before we do though, I want to show you something. If you haven't already, you need to go to onlinearcheryacademy.com, my website, put in your email address here, and get, if you don't already get it, my free weekly email newsletter. I send 3 tips every Friday here, and people just love this newsletter. So for example, last Friday, I think it was a technique tip, a training tip, and an equipment tip. Easy to read, takes 3-4 minutes, but people love this, so I wanted to mention it at the start of the video. Now, let's get into the grip. So why do you actually need to customize your grip? If we actually start with this, I've got a video here I want to show you. I want you to have a look, to answer this question, I want you to have a look at the grip and the hands of these 3 archers. You might know some of them, but look at Kim Woo-jin's hand and look at his grip. So maybe I'll zoom in a little bit for you and you can have a little bit of a look. So you can see that there. And now let's scroll through. You can't see, you can just about see his face. It's Lee Woo-suk here. Look at his hand and look at his grip. And now finally we'll get to Im Dong-yeon now. Look at his hand and look at his grip. Hopefully, you might notice a couple of things, but hopefully you notice that their hand shape is different. Every single person has a different hand shape. And I wish that manufacturers want you to believe that their grip is the best thing since sliced bread and it's the perfect grip for everyone and you don't need to do anything and just right out of the box this is going to be perfect. But that's not the case. Everyone's hand is a different size, a different shape. So the fact that maybe one grip is going to work for every single archer on the planet, that is just simply a lie. It's not true. So this is why you must modify your grip, because your hand is unique to you. Likewise, there are a lot of websites that sell grips, and there are archers that make, their own versions of grips. And there is a benefit to this, but at the end of the day, that is not going to work for everyone. So you have to realize that, yes, you can buy a Brady grip or a whoever grip or whatever. And these grips might be perfect for some people, but they're not going to be perfect for everyone. So we'll get on to kind of buying custom grips a little bit later in the video. But for now, what I want to say about that is they can be brilliant. And actually, that's the one I use, a custom, a grip that was actually made. But even if you're going to go down that route, I would suggest modifying your grip with like a putty, which we're going to get to in a second. For example, this kind of putty here, this is what we're going to talk about in the video and how you're going to do this. Because A, it's much cheaper. B, you can test much more, many more different grip shapes. And then you'll get to know what is good when you then try maybe in a more expensive, 3D printed type of grip. If you go straight, you could just order every single type of grip from, for example, Jaeger or Arcor. These are 2 kind of, grip making websites. But it would be incredibly expensive and you might not quite know what you're looking for. You might not be able to get it exactly how you want. So this is why you must customize your grip. And the other thing that I wanted to mention here, I'll just go back to the main screen for you. But if you think about your bow, there's only 2 points that I say this a lot, but there's only 2 points that you permanently contact your bow. Your hook and your grip. Those are basically the only 2 permanent contact points. Yes, okay, you touch your face with the string at full draw, and some people will touch their chest guard a little bit with the string. But the 2 permanent contact points which actually affect your shot is your hook and your grip. And this is why I just go on and on about you must modify your tab and your grip. So hopefully you get my point. You must do this. And it's not as intimidating as it first looks. That's my goal for the video today. I know it looks intimidating. I know people don't want to destroy the grip that's on your bow and put stuff on it, but it's not as bad as it looks. It's actually quite easy. It can be quite fun and you'll learn a lot. You'll learn a great deal. So that's why I want to kind of get into that. So now, this is kind of how we're going to go through the process, and I want to kind of talk through this in a little bit. But before we do, I want to go through a couple of things, what you want in your grip. So to do that, I'm going to bring up this video as well here of Park Sung-yeon. And a couple of things I want to show you as to what you're looking for in your grip. I want to just point out one thing here. Look at, I'm going to zoom in for you. Look at Park Sung-hyun's knuckle of her bow hand thumb. The knuckle is quite deep into the grip. I know that the camera is slightly back from the shooting line, so that does make it makes it look deeper than it is. But this knuckle, if I get my brush here to kind of show you, but this knuckle position is actually quite deep into the bow. You can see it's round about here. That's supposed to be a straight line, and the pressure button is only here, quite deep into the bow. If you compare that, so that's good. Just to clarify, we want to be able to have that knuckle quite deep in the grip, and that makes it secure. If we compare that, for example, that position to this one as well, you'll see a very similar thing. So you'll see that the position is quite deep. We'll scroll through here. In this position here, and we'll scroll up. See again the knuckle, it's quite deep in the grip. If you see that this isn't the case, what you'll tend to see, if someone's knuckle is kind of not fully into the grip, and the other thing that we're looking at here is the thumb fully alongside, what tends to happen is the hand is kind of a bit set back. So I'll go to this main screen for you, but if that knuckle is fully alongside here, you get that nice kind of pressure through the grip with the thumb. If you're set back like this, the hand twists around and you don't get the good position that you need to get, and you don't get a solid pressure point here. So you want that solid pressure point, and having that knuckle quite deep is something that helps with that. So this is really important. This is one kind of thing that you need to be aware of. The next thing as well is that solid pressure point that I mentioned. So for example, you want to feel quite a solid, it doesn't have to be tiny. Some people feel like the pressure point needs to be very, very small, but it needs to feel very solid and like the meaty part of your thumb pad. So you can see here, this thumb pad here, this meaty part of your thumb, you need to feel the pressure on there in the grip. If you feel a lot of the pressure at the top here, probably not the right thing. Particularly if you feel a lot of the pressure along this left side and you feel the left edge of the grip is the primary thing, also not what you want. So you want that right hand side of the grip and that solid pressure point to be the kind of primary solid placement of your hand. So that's the kind of second thing that I wanted to mention there. Now, the next thing I've already mentioned about, I've got my list here, the knuckle quite deep. I've mentioned about the solid pressure point. The space, I want to mention something about the space for the web of your hand. So what do I mean by that? Is if we go in this video, and I'm going to scroll through to here, I will zoom out a bit. In the top of the grip, so if we open up this video as well, in the top of the grip here, at this point, on all three of these grips here, you can see there's a fair amount of space between where the bottom of the grip is here and the throat of the grip, the top of the grip is here. That gives enough space for the webbing of your hand. If that's too narrow, then you don't have space to essentially put the web of your hand in and then place down on the pressure point, because that's the order that you want to do it when you're doing your bow hand in the grip, is the web goes in first and then slightly down onto the pressure point. So really important to make sure there's enough space there, particularly if you've got larger hands. Probably most grips that come on general bows that come with it, they're kind of catering to a general hand size and shape. If you've got larger hands, you might feel like there's not enough space and you can't actually get into the grip fully, which can become a bit of a problem. Another reason why customizing your own grip is really good. Likewise, if you've got very small hands, maybe that size at the top is too big and you put your hand in and you feel like it's moving around everywhere. And what can happen with that is you get the skin fold at the top can kind of like be pushed under, and some archers feel like their skin is kind of getting a callus and kind of folding under and feels like it's kind of burning almost, because it's like friction as you're drawing the bow. So it's important to get that top part of the grip the correct size for your hand. Again, this is why one grip does not suit everyone. So the other thing that you also want is that you want it to feel like you're on the right side of the grip. So what I mean by that is, if we go to this video here, and I'm just going to let it play through so it's clearer. So there, we've got this bit here. You don't want to feel like, I'm going to get my drawing out, my excellent drawing skills are going to show again. But you want to feel, I mentioned about the pressure point and that meaty part of the thumb pad. If you now look at where this thumb pad is on the grip, you can see Wow, that's a good circle actually. I take that back. You can see this is where it looks like the majority of the pressure is, and I know because I shot that arrow. That was me. So this is where it feels like the majority of the pressure is, and you might wonder, you might say, okay, but that's not actually in the middle of the grip. If we draw a line down the middle of the grip like this, it kind of actually looks like the pressure point is more on the right, and that is actually, for most people, what you actually end up feeling. Yes, you've got that solid pressure point, but a lot of archers get confused and they try and make that solid pressure point perfectly in the middle of the grip, and the result of that is, instead of getting that knuckle deep into the grip, they get their hand like this and they feel like they're slipping around the left side of the bow for a right-handed archer. So they feel like they're kind of slipping around this way, like that. So this is where you have to be careful, and this is what I mean by you want to feel like you're on the right side of the grip. Conversely, this left side of the grip, you can't see it from this angle, but we've got a front, I think we've got a front angle at the beginning here, yeah. So if we get to this position here, and we scroll up slightly, this side of the grip here, you actually want to feel like there's space. So if you imagine my two fingers here are the grip, you actually want to feel like there's space on this side where the fingers are. You don't want to feel like your fingers are close up onto the side of the riser, because if you feel that, it basically means that the pressure is on the left side of the grip. You're probably going to torque the grip, and it also means you're not directing through your thumb on the right hand side. You probably don't have that deep knuckle that I mentioned about as well. So these are a couple of pointers. The last thing that I want to mention as well is maybe probably the most commonly asked question, which is about the shelf of the grip and the finger, the index finger, going above it. So if I scroll up here, you can see, look at the index finger and look at the kind of fleshy part of the hand here over the top of the grip. I get a lot of questions about this. People ask about this quite often, which is this okay? Should my kind of fleshy part of the hand be over the grip? Because you can see the shelf of the grip is down here, obviously, and even the web of the hand is kind of like slightly folding over here, almost the riser. This is actually what you want. For most people, when you get a good grip position, this is probably what you're going to see. If you don't have any of your kind of index finger slightly going over the shelf, it doesn't necessarily mean you've got a bad position, but it probably means for a lot of people that it's not optimum, because basically if you have your angle of your fingers, if I get this line here again, you can see this angle between the index finger and the knuckle here. If you imagine that that's going to be perfectly straight instead now, so if we imagine instead of being angled that we're going to go like this, what's going to happen with that is the whole hand is going to have to rotate. So you're going to have to rotate the whole hand this way in order to do that, and that's going to mean that this part of the hand, maybe around here, is going to end up going onto the grip here. So brilliant drawing again, but you get the point. The issue is, like if I do this into the camera now, you can see this angle again, and if I move my index finger down, you can see this part of the hand is now going to go on the grip, and you're just going to torque the bow. So in order to avoid this part of the hand going on the grip, which you don't want, you've probably seen that in previous videos. If you haven't, I've got a few grip positioning videos on this YouTube channel that you can check out. But in order to do that, you're going to have that index finger over the shelf of the grip like that. So it's actually something you want. And again, we can see this in examples. I mean, Park Sung-hyun is possibly the most extreme version of this. If we scroll through, I'll zoom out a little bit, but you can really see this in the first couple of clips. I think we get to it here. I mean, look at this. It's a bit pixelated because it's from 2004, but you can really see the web of her hand riding up over the shelf here. And then I think there's another angle. This one really shows it well. You can see here, look at that. But she's got that strong pressure point on the grip. She's got that deep knuckle in the grip as well. And like I mentioned, it looks like that pressure point is slightly on the right side. And then if we go, I don't know if there's a, oh yeah, this is an even better view here. I mean, look at that. So this is what I wanted to show you, pardon me, in terms of the positioning. And that's kind of a brief summary of the things that you want essentially. So just to summarize that, you want space for the web of your hand at the top. You want the solid pressure point, you want the knuckle deep in the grip, you want the space on the left side, and also you do want that index finger essentially above the grip and that angle between the index finger and the thumb as well. And you want that pressure point, finally, to feel like you're on the right side of the grip. So now we're going to get into, essentially, how to do this and how to make the grip. But before we do, I want to mention something. So this video on YouTube is actually not the full version. If you want to see the full version of this video, you can become an Online Archery Academy member, and I'll show you that here. So you can subscribe, onlinearcheryacademy.com, hit the become a member icon here, and you get access to my full videos where I go through. So these ones on YouTube are good, but there's extra sections that I share just for my members. And in this one today, I'm going to go through. So if we get this here, someone sent in this grip that they wanted me to critique. So I'm going to do that for them in that video. And I'm also going to go through this video here. I'm going to go through, these are 3 grips I made, and I'm going to go through what's good about them, what you can improve. And also when we get to the end of today's video, I'm going to show you kind of the end point of getting to a basic grip kind of shape. Then I'm going to go through where you would go from there, how you would then mold that, how you would shoot and test it, how you would then file it down, how you would get it to look. Obviously these are varying stages, but this one on the right is more polished. So I think you're really going to like that. What you also get, if I go back here, you get access to ask questions on Q&As. You get tips from Kim Woo Jin. Yes, literally direct from Kim Woo Jin, Steve Weiler and Bryony Pittman. You get access to all, if I go here, all of my drills and libraries. You also get access to the previous emails I've sent before from my 3 quick tips that I mentioned before. You get access to all of these drills, literally everything that you could ever want. It's literally £3 a month. I wanted to make it completely affordable for everyone. So if you don't check that out, you're nuts. But definitely do check that out. And also, while we're here, I would encourage you to check out my Online Archery Academy video courses. These, I spent so much energy and effort putting these together, and I'm just blown away by the feedback. So many people have improved their coaching. You can see here someone went from 260s to 280s on their indoor round, and they mentioned you can keep the video courses for life. But essentially, there's a beginner course which teaches you everything you need to know from beginner to basically a competent level archer, and then the advanced recurve technique course is probably the one that everyone's favorite, because there's been so many people that have learned so much on this course and improved their shooting as well. So there's a special link in the description with a discount for you on the courses. There's also a link to become an Online Archery Academy member. Let's get back to the video though, because I want to show you now how to customize the grip and what to do. Don't worry. I know there's a knife in the video, and I know this is where people get put off. It's not as bad as it seems. So I want to go through here how you start. Firstly, this is much cheaper than getting all those customized grips. Yes, you're going to take a knife to your grip and destroy it, but you're actually going to improve it, and you're going to learn a lot. And getting another stock grip on your bow is much easier than getting one of the more expensive 3D printed ones. So what you want to do first of all is you want to get something like, you can see here, this milliput. So this is my favorite one that I like to use. I use the milliput. You can see on the package maybe here if I zoom in, it says milliput yellow grey. That's my favorite one to use for doing grips, because that color, the different colors of the milliput are different hardnesses when it sets. And the yellow grey means that when you're going to sand it down, it doesn't take absolutely forever to sand it down. It's kind of a good medium, and it's also still hard enough that when you're shooting it's solid. So yeah, this is what you want, milliput. You can get that on eBay, Amazon, local like department store or whatever. Or you can also use, there's other kind of types. You can use like water weld is another one. Lots of different countries have their own. But basically it's a 2-part putty. You can see here these 2 parts. And you cut a piece off smaller than you think, and you mix them together. So the first thing you want to do, like you can see here, this picture, you want to score your grip. So this is a win and win grip here. And the thing with a lot of grips now, because they're mostly plastic, they have this kind of rubber coating. So you want to remove some of that rubber coating because the putty is not going to stick to it. So what I normally do is get a knife and kind of scrape up and down. That's not in this picture here, but kind of scrape up and down to remove that kind of rubbery coating. And then after that, diagonally draw these lines here, and that's basically going to give the milliput something to go into so it can stick onto the grip properly. I know it looks like you're destroying a grip, but it's going to be covered anyway, so it doesn't matter. If you want, you can do it much neater than I did, but that's the thing. You then want to get the putty, and you can see here, it's just a 3cm section. The stick is pretty long, so you've got probably about 5 or 6 grips worth in one packet of milliput, and it's not expensive. So even if you mess it up, you can just start again. It's not hard. Little 3cm section, and then you want to cut it like this. You maybe cut it into lots and lots of different little pieces, and basically you just want to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes just basically molding it into a ball and really mixing it well. This is the most important bit, is mixing it really, really well. So you can see that there. This is what it should look like. There should be no lumps of the different colors. It should mold into one color, and this is what it should look like once you've basically, made it together, because you don't want it to have little bits in it, because that means it's not going to stick. It's not going to set properly because you haven't basically mixed the two bits. And this is what you want it to look like. So yours might look different if you got a different color, but that's the kind of general thing. You really need to mix it well. Now, this is not on the page here, but I opened on the left here. I split the putty open to show that it was well mixed. But then before you put it on your grip like this, you want to just roll it in your hands and make a perfect sphere. Make a ball, stick that ball onto the grip where you've scored it. And then this phase here, figure 7, is after basically starting to press it down. So you just use your thumb to press it down. Obviously, as you press it down, it will widen, and then you press the sides in a bit, and you just slowly shape it. It's quite fun. It's quite enjoyable. And you want to shape it basically to a good starting point. So what I mean by that with a good starting point is that it's wide enough here. You can see on figure 8, you can go slightly over the edges of the grip because you can sand it down later. It makes your life a lot easier if you can sand it down later rather than have to kind of, smash it off and redo the whole thing. The other thing that I want to mention, you can see this here in this picture. And maybe I can open this picture or zoom in a bit more. Here we go. So if I zoom in a bit more for you here, like so. Oh, that will do it. That's the zoom. That's the zoom that we want. So if we scroll down, we've got the zoom now. This bit is important. You can see here, I've basically smoothed the sides. I've pressed down here. This curve is the bit that's important. You don't want just a block like this. You want to make sure that there's a smoothing of the curve, because obviously you've added a gradient, you've added an angle with this putty now, and you want to make sure that there's this smooth gradient here, like so, because this then goes into the web, and this bad drawing, but the web space of that grip. So this basically means that it's not going to feel uncomfortable, and it means that when you sand it, you can smooth that out, and you've got this smooth gradient going from the putty here into the shape, into the arc of this throat of the grip. That's really important, because a lot of people, they kind of make just a straight line, and sometimes, for example, someone will make a grip, and they might go like, they might have an angle, and they might do this, and it just goes perfectly straight to the bottom. And then obviously then you've got the curve, that second line should be curved, but then you've got the curve of this part of the grip, and it can feel a bit weird, and sometimes the web of your hand, the skin can kind of get caught in, and again it can kind of feel like there's a lot of friction. So this general shape is a pretty good starting point. That's a pretty good starting point. I'm going to zoom back out now so that you can actually see what's going on. And then I want to kind of show you how to evaluate and what to do with this grip. So how to evaluate how it is and what to do with it next. So essentially, if we go here, you can see the figures here. This is after sanding it a little bit. The way you want to sand it, if I scroll back up, you can see this here. This is what you call a belt sander. It might be called something different in your country, but essentially it's got this belt here. And because it's on like a stick, it means it's electric, which makes it faster. But it means that when you sand, you're sanding in one line, so it's easier to get an angle and a flat surface. That's why it's helpful. You don't have to have one of these. You can just use a piece of sandpaper, but I would encourage you to put that on a block of wood so that when you sand, it's flat and you're not getting, like, basically if you just have sandpaper on its own, it will be very hard to make an even surface. So using a belt sander is good, and electric makes it faster. One thing I should mention, always take your grip off your bow. Even if you're confident that you're not going to sand your bow, your riser, by accident, the dust from the grip goes absolutely everywhere. It gets into every part of your bow, every screw hole, every, lattice bit on your bow. Literally, I've tried it, you can probably tell. It gets into everything, and it's impossible to get out. I had to shower my bow. I had to put my bow in the shower to get rid of all the dust. So take the grip off the bow. And what I want to show you here is a couple of things. You want a slight angle from left to right, like this. So when you look into the grip here, you can see there's a very slight angle, and the reason it's very, very slight is because this is the starting point. If you start with a massive angle, then you're going to have to do a load of sanding to get it kind of relatively flat. If you start with it fairly flat, but very slightly angled to the right, then you're going to have a good starting point. So this is why I've started here. You can also note the width of the grip here, around the edges, like I mentioned, is slightly wider than the actual original grip, because you can always sand it in. You can always sand it in, but it's very hard to put it back on. So this is why I've started in this position. You can also see here on this bit, this starting point is definitely not the finished product around here, because that is probably going to catch the web of your hand, for example. And this part in particular, eventually, once you've got the shape that you want to file that out and make it really, really smooth. Now, the final thing I want to mention here is that left to right angle that I said about before. The reason that's important is because of that knuckle that I mentioned earlier. Do you remember I said that you want that knuckle quite deep into the grip and you want to feel like that pressure point is slightly on the right side of the grip? That left to right angle here that you can see helps that. So that's why it's important. Now, finally, what I want to get to here is, how do you test the grip? So this is the final section on this blog post, and you can read this in your own time as well on the Online Archery Academy website. But I want to go through a couple of things here. Does it allow you to position your hand properly and direct the bow through the thumb on release? So what that means is, if you shoot your shot, and this is probably good to do at close range with your eyes closed, 2 meters or so, you're not going to miss the target. Close your eyes and feel how the bow jumps out of your hand. You want it to feel like the bow is jumping straight out of your hand and obviously rolling forwards. You don't want it to feel like there's any twist or torque. You want to see if the grip is helping you give that straight delivery, essentially. Or if you feel like there's a twist, that's going to basically inform you and say, okay, let's try sanding down a little bit on the left side or the right side or whatever, and see if that gets better or worse. Then, does the grip help you rotate your bow arm elbow so that it's a vertical? This is an interesting one, and I think people kind of forget about this. But the wrong grip shape can make it almost impossible to get this bow arm elbow into the straight position. I'm not going to go through the full technique of it now, but not every single archer needs this perfectly straight. Generally, for most people, you do want it somewhat straight. It varies. But if in particular you're finding that your grip is making you really want to turn this way, that probably means then your bow shoulder is being pushed back and up, and it's not helping you get a strong bow shoulder position, alignment, stuff that we've talked about in previous videos when we looked at Kim Woo-jin and Oh Jin-hyek recently as well. So yeah, this is really, really important. That's why I mentioned that on the second point here. And also, we've already kind of mentioned point 3 here about the hand flying straight towards the target, but there's a really good point here, which is you can watch or video the long rod on release. So what I mean by that is, if you actually have a look, we can bring up a video here again of Park Sung-yeon, and you can actually look at the long rod here, particularly from the kind of 5 o'clock angle is what I call it, but particularly from kind of like this angle here, but slightly to the right side. So for example, this angle is a little bit too far around, but you can watch the long rod of the shot and see how it jumps. You want to see, the long rod is probably going to just have a little bit of a movement up with the damper, but the actual roll should be kind of straight down and direct. If you see it twist and go like this, or up and right or up and left, or twist to one side, that probably means you're torquing the bow, and it's easier to see that on the long rod because it's obviously very far away and it's very sensitive. So if you can't see it visually, you can video it, slow it down, scrub through on your, on your phone, whatever. Maybe use slow-mo if you've got that, but that's a really good way to kind of check through it. How is your sight float? This is quite a useful one as well. You can do full draw holds. You can get to full draw and see, okay, do I feel more stable or less stable? Does my sight seem better with the aiming? Does it vibrate a bit more? Is the float the same, or is it better? This can be quite useful as well. I would say the most useful one though, there's two, the roll and the direction of the bow on release, or this number 5. Can you push your bow without torquing the grip when you do your expansion? So this is really important. The balance that I mentioned in the Oh Jin-hyek and the Kim Woo-jin videos of that expansion part, if your grip doesn't allow you to do that, then yes, it could be partly a technique error, but if your grip is making it more difficult and you're having to fight against your grip, that's not what you want. So you want to see, okay, is this grip, I've modified it, I've sanded it down, is it helping me at that full draw position? If I go to the full screen now, is it helping me in this position move around here? Obviously this draw hand side is going to be relatively unaffected, but particularly on this side, when I'm directing to the target, is that helping me do that in a straight line? Or do I feel like when I'm directing, I'm kind of veering off to one side? That's a really, really important point, because that's possibly the most important point of the shot. It then leads to the release and whether or not you get that forward roll that you want. So this is the kind of summary of today's video. I want to go through, I hope you join and become a member, because I'm going to go through now and go, into those bits that I mentioned before. So I'm going to have a look at that grip that someone sent in. I'm going to critique this grip and kind of mention about it. There's something important I want to mention about this kind of V-shaped notch that you see more commonly kind of these days. And then I'm going to go through these grips here that I mentioned as well, and kind of go through what's good, how you would then file it down and kind of smooth it out. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you don't want to join my membership or one of my courses, at least get the newsletter, and then you get all the free kind of information every Friday as well. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.